Hey everybody, so it's winter steelhead fishing season here in British Columbia, but I haven't gotten out yet, simply because the rivers are not really in shape. We've had a fair amount of rain. Well, that's a bit of an understatement. In the last few weeks, we've basically had flooding going on, so the rivers are just recovering right now. So I thought, well, while we're waiting, why don't I put together a video showing all of you what I like to use for winter steelhead fishing. Now, winter steelhead fishing is primarily done by float fishing, but you can definitely cast and swing spoons and spinners for them. You can fly fish for them. But for anyone who's starting out, the most common method used is probably float fishing. So that's going to be our focus in this video. I'm going to show you what I like to use under the float. Now, steelhead can range anywhere from 5 pounds up to 20 pounds. I've caught them as small as 2 pounds. At a 15-pound fish, like you saw what I caught last season, it's a really big fish. So because of the range of the sizes, you want to use tackle that can withstand any of these fish. The last thing you want to do is to use something too light, and if you hook into a 15-pound or 20-pound steelhead, you end up breaking it up. That would just be heartbreaking, right? So my favorite, again, the Shimano Tranx 300, coupled with a drift rod that's rated between anywhere from 8 to 20 pounds. It's adequate enough. For mainline, I like to run 15-pound monofilament. So this is 15-pound Maxima Ultra Green. I've been using that for the last 20 years. I've never really had any problems with it, so that's why I keep using it. But a lot of people also use Power Pro braided line as well. You can put 15 or 20-pound Power Pro braided line, and that works pretty well as well. For steelhead fishing, you tend to focus in runs that are slightly faster than salmon fishing. Salmon fishing, especially for cold fishing, we tend to look for that very slow, moderate flow, the walking speed run. So you tend to use a smaller float, like a 15 gram or 20 gram float is ideal for cold salmon fishing. For steelhead fishing, I like to go anywhere from 20 grams and up. 20 at 25 grams is what you want to use. Some people use 30 grams or 35 grams. Depends on how fast and how deep the water is. But generally, 20 and 25 grams is what I like to use. So these are DNE, teardrop shaped floats. And they come in many different sizes from 10, 15, 20, 25, up to 35, or I think they even make 40 grams as well. But these are kind of like my favorite. They come in many other different colors on the bottom. My favorite is kind of like the gray, because I don't know, it's kind of like a personal preference thing. I find maybe this is more stealth than the other colors. They come in black, green, as well, so definitely going to the shop and look for your favorite colors. They're not very expensive. That's what I liked about these. So these foam floats cost roughly around $2 each. So if you lose one, when you break off or whatnot, it won't break the bank. So anyway, so that's floats. For the leader, what I like to use is Seaguar fluorocarbon leaders. So these, again, steelhead tend to be, it can be small or big, and you want something that's fairly strong so it doesn't break off. I tend to go with a minimum 12-pound test. So these Seaguar STS fluorocarbon line, 12 pound or 15 pound is what I find works well for me. In the past, I've used 8 pound, 10 pound, and I have broken off fish, a big fish actually in the past. So lesson learned, go up to 12 pound or 15 pound. It's kind of like my preference. I won't go through the entire float fishing setup. I've done quite a few videos on float fishing setups for salmon and steelhead. So I'll put the links on the bottom so you can check it out. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Just go watch it and you can figure out how to set up your float. So from your weight down to below the weight, the leader, you have your presentations. There are so many different presentations you can use for steelhead. Steelhead are generally pretty aggressive, so if you put something in front of their face, they will bite it 9 times out of 10. But that being said, everyone has a kind of personal favorite, so do I. Over the years, I've had I have one or two presentations that tend to work more than the other ones. I mean, once you catch one fish, you tend to go back to the same presentation over and over again, right? So you start catching more of them. My all-time favorite in the last few years is using these jig heads. So I'll show you right here. So these 1/16-ounce jig heads made by Jig Geek. It's a local company. Works really well for me. So these come with either the size 1/0 hook or size 2 hooks for the smaller presentations. What I really like about these is how strong these hooks are. So it's got a pretty thick shank, very, very sharp. Has a very sharp point, and it doesn't bend very easily for a long shank, so you don't lose a whole lot of fish. So what I like to use with these are shrimps or prawns. So like these. So you basically have to thread the shrimp onto the hook like that and just kind of follow the shank. And what's so great about these is because of the long shank, this shrimp sits on the hook very nicely. See how long it is? You can do many drifts with this without having the shrimp sliding down very easily. Whereas if you're using like a general purpose hook like these ones, these only SSW hooks, if you put the shrimp on there, they tend to slide off after 1 or 2 casts. The other good thing is that this 1/16-ounce jig head, the weight is very, very small, but just big enough to keep this presentation down near the strike zone. If you're using these hooks without any weights near the hooks, especially if you're fishing in pretty fast water, it tends to push the shrimp all over the place, and that's kind of like less time staying in the strike zone, and you're less likely to get bites with those than the jig heads. That's my theory anyways, and it definitely has worked for me in the last couple of seasons. I think last season I hooked into about 8 fish with using this presentation, and so I'm going to keep using that. I'm pretty happy with it. So from the jig head, you tie a leader that's roughly around 1.5 feet long. 2 feet would be the most. You don't want to keep that leader too long, simply because if you're fishing pretty fast water, if the leader's too long, it's gonna push that bait all over the place, away from the strike zone again. So keep the leader short. Trust me, that the weight used to balance the float will not scare the fish. So yeah, so that's one of the bait you can use. Atlas Mike's spawn sack mesh to tie single eggs, these posse bait single eggs into them. You can put like maybe half a dozen eggs tied into spawn sacks and use those as well. You can use roe, salmon roe, steelhead roe as well. I tend to stay away from roe in the wintertime simply because it gets pretty messy, especially in January, December, January, when it's really cold. The last thing I want to do is getting my hands all sticky and wet. These keep your hands relatively clean, so I tend to just stick with the shrimp. So the next one up is the pink worm. So the pink worm works really well if sometimes bait doesn't work, or if you're fishing in the river system that has a bait ban that doesn't allow to use natural bait. A pink worm is a good go-to presentation as well. So this is a 5 or 6 inch long pink worm threaded onto the leader, and before you tie a hook onto the bottom, you put a bead between the worm and the hook, just so that the shank of the eye or the shank of the hook doesn't slice into the pink worm whenever you're retrieving or setting the hook. So yeah, and that works pretty well too. For some reason, steelhead love pink worms. So something new I'm gonna try out this year is these holy worms made by BNR Tackle. So unlike these traditional pink worms, so these holy worms, like the name suggested, they come with pre-cut holes in them, so you can simply thread your line into these worms without using a needle, which I find is a bit of a hassle. These holy worms come in 3.5 inches long or 5 inches long. like that. They come in different colors as well. So this is bubblegum. So this is called first cast. It's a slightly, I guess, lighter pink color for different water conditions, I guess. So it all comes down to experience, right? So it's, for the I guess clearer, slower water, you want to go with something small, something a little light. For the faster water, dirty water, you go with something a little the darker color, a little bigger presentation tend to work, just make it more visible for the fish. So yeah, holy worms. The other BNR tackle product that I want to try out these soft beads. You saw how well these work for cold salmon this past fall, so I'm excited to try these out. So again, these come in many different sizes as well. Come anywhere from 8 millimeters or 6 millimeters up to 20. So the smaller ones again for the clear, slow water, and then you go up to the bigger ones for the faster water, right? And they come in many different colors. Mottled pink is what I have right here, and but I find mottled cherries work really well for coho. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to try these out. So you simply got a thread. I got it set up right here actually. You just gotta thread the bead onto the leader and have it placed maybe like one inch or 2 inch above the hook. So let's take a look. So like that, just like that. And yeah, and it worked for cold salmon this year, so I'm looking forward to try these out again. For hooks to go with the beads, I like to use my owner SSW hooks. So you have your size 1. Size 1 is kind of my favorite. Size 1/0 is what I like to use for the pink worms. For the size 4, you go down to, when you're using smaller presentations like a smaller beads, you go with a size 4 hook. I don't think I've used anything smaller than size 4 actually. So size 1, size 4, size 1/0. Some people like size 2 as well, and that's kind of like the range of the hook sizes we like to use for steelhead. So, oh yeah, so going back to the shrimp, this is what I like to use. So they aren't sponsoring me, so but this is what I usually buy from the supermarket. So the pre-frozen shrimp rings. What a box of these cost roughly around $5 to $6 each. And they can last several, for several outings. I find myself using anywhere from 10 to 20 shrimps per outing. Depends on how long you fish during that outing, right? So, yeah, you can use, like I said, there's so many different presentations you can use. You can use wool. You can use different kinds of bait. You can use ghost shrimps. You can use, you can use just a little tiny hard bead as well. They all catch fish, but like I say, everyone has their own personal favorite. I would go out and try out a few things. The only other advice I like to give is that try not to, I guess, focus on one spot and try out many different presentations for that particular spot, because I find myself that when I get to the run, if there's an aggressive fish, usually after 1 or 2 casts, they'll bite right away. If you're spending too long at one spot, casting over and over again, even with different presentations, it simply doesn't work that well unless there's a whole bunch of fish stacking up in the area. And but again, those fish are most likely stale. It's a good idea to just move on. I like to kind of switch back and forth between my shrimp and my pink worm, and just kind of work different runs really fast and just keep going and until you find a fish. So there you have it. If you have any other questions, please leave it on the comment section. I'm always happy to answer your question. If you're getting out for steelhead fishing for the very first time this season, good luck. Just remember that it takes some persistence, patience, and determinations to get your first fish, but it's totally worth it. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so. I really appreciate your support. There will be many other winter steelhead fishing videos to come in the next few months, and until next time, good luck fishing. Oh. Wow. It's massive.
How's that?